Okay, welcome to our webinar series. First, let me welcome it's our great honor to invite Professor Helen Crafton to deliver this talk for us. Within 3 years COVID-19, we need to update our ideas and new thinking about the mobile learning. So it's really happy Helen will with us to deliver this talk. So first, let me introduce Professor Helen Crafton. Dr. Helen Crafton is the Executive Director of Research Institute of Digital Innovation in Learning at ODU Global and a Professor of Instructional Technology at Old Dominion University. She's also the Director of the Virtual Reality Lab at ODU. She draws from 30 years in education and a PhD in educational technology and mathematics education from the University of North Carolina at Capitol Hill. So Crafton is on Stanford's list of the top 2% of scientists in the world. And she has published more than 150 articles on technology integration, and she has received numerous awards in the USA and her home country, England, for her work in technology integration, including the SCHEV Award for the Outstanding Professor of Virginia. She is a consultant of various governments and bilateral and multilateral organizations, such as the United Nations and the World Bank on educational technology topics. She also consults for organizations such as the International Society for Technology in Education. So she's very productive, and especially she's expert at mobile learning. So during my research, I also learned a lot from Professor Helen Crafton's research in mobile learning. So let's welcome Professor Helen Crafton to deliver her talk, moving toward a mobile learning landscape, effective device integration. Okay, yeah, Professor Helen Crafton, yeah.
Thank you very much for that kind invitation and the introduction as well. So moving towards a mobile learning landscape, effective device integration. And as you heard there, I have various roles at the university and I have great fun exploring what mobile devices can do. Just a bit of extra background, I spent a long time also in the classroom in K-12 in school age, younger children up to high school, looking at mobile devices and what they could do. In fact, I was on kind of the early stages of mobile before we had the tablets. And I could see then the capabilities. And in fact, we looked at, what was it? The iPod Touch. That was an early one. And I actually did my early studies in that. And I kept thinking, well, it's great, this small device. And it's a shame we don't have a slightly larger one. Then the iPad came out. So I've kind of seen this transition over. But to me, it was a great game changer in education to have mobile devices to really contextualize learning. So I'm going to kind of share some thoughts from my experience as well across education. So I'm speaking from experience teaching all the way through from very, very young children to adults all the way through. So mobile devices can definitely be used to transform teaching and learning. You can kind of see some modernistic examples with some younger children there, which many times we'd look and think, wow, that is very futuristic, but we see a lot of these things happening now, especially with artificial intelligence connecting to kind of super amplify what mobile devices can do. However, it's not always smooth sailing, so I will be telling you about some things we also need to think about. But let's have a look, first of all, what can we do with mobile devices that we couldn't do before we had mobile devices? Well, there are various answers to that, and I'm going to focus on these 5 in particular. Mobile learning can be contingent, situated, authentic, personalized, and context aware. So I'll explain those further. Contingent, people might not have connected that term as much to mobile devices. You might have seen that a great deal. But contingent is, it's in the moment. So a lot of learning happens in the moment. It might be a student walking up a street and seeing something on a sign, a billboard, and thinking, oh, what is that? Or, you know, let me fact check that, or whatever they're doing, it's in the moment, and they can use their device to do that. So contingent learning. Situated. So learning is actually within the environment that it's talking about. So students are learning about pond life. They can actually be at a pond. Before this, taking a big tethered computer is a little bit hard. Perhaps, you know, it cannot happen because you might not have electricity out there. But situated, it is very easy to have a device, especially a smaller mobile, rather than even a laptop, to be able to learn at that place. Authentic, very authentic, wherever people are, whether they're training to be doctors, going around to different wards to patients. Learning can be very authentic because you don't have to walk away to take notes or go on the computer. It's right there with you while you're working. Personalized is something we've seen a great deal of. Now, personalized, yes, it was there before we had mobile devices, but with mobile device, it amplified that a great deal. So, for example, students could learn lying on the floor if they chose to do so. And I've seen students doing that, and they work best there on a cushion, you know, very comfortable learning. That can happen. It can also happen that they can work in different locations of the room, perhaps for lighting or temperature, or they're watching a video and then they can keep stopping and restarting it while they're in a quieter area. And so there's very many additional things that can really personalize learning for students. And context aware. So context aware, you might have heard the term context aware ubiquitous learning. That's what I'm very much interested in, and it's used in various contexts. So let me tell you what I'm describing here. Context aware is a student, instead of being kind of a bubble where a student's looking at a device and everything around the student is ignored, being very opposite, where they can see what's happening, like Pokemon Go. It's been out for a good long while now, but that was the first one that I thought was a wonderful idea, that students are actually looking at the surroundings while they're using the mobile device and saying, oh, you know, who knew there was a monument there? And then playing the game on the mobile device at the same time. But they are working into context. I had students learning mathematics, learning about angle, while they had the mobile device going to the playground, and they took photographs of the angle and then measured the angle. So context aware, context being the environment as well as the actual subject context. So keeping those both together while they're learning. So these 5 things, if you look at learning and how the brain works, these match perfectly to really allowing students to learn in the best environment and the best way possible to help the brain focus. Now, that's all well and good, but the research findings do show that educators are often not integrating mobile devices effectively into the curriculum. So mobile devices are there, but they're not working always. Now, let's have a look at what the problem is. So I'm going to give you an example here. Here is a classroom. You've got a violin there, and you've got all the students playing the violin. So as a classroom teacher, this would happen to me. What would happen is the principal, or in faculty, as a faculty member, the dean would come up and say, oh, we've got these mobile devices, and so we've bought them, so it's wonderful, you know, you'll be able to use the mobile device and all your students will be able to use the mobile device. It's like the violin. Oh, we've given you a violin, so you'll be able to use it, play it, and, you know, by the end of the day, by the end of the week, all your students will play violin beautifully. We know that's not the case. There's a lot more to it. And so what educators often do is they get a device and use familiar methods, such as worksheets there, changing them to an iPad. And this on the right here was an actual advertisement, how to use worksheets on an iPad. So this is not effective use of mobile devices whatsoever. We need to kind of think beyond. I describe this as using 21st century technologies for 20th century teaching. So what we need to be doing, we've been in the 21st century for a long while now. We should definitely be using 21st century technologies with that 21st century teaching. So in my work, you can hear in the description then, I've learned and looked at mobile learning literally around the globe. And educators need some type of effective integration framework or frameworks. So there are some already out there. So ones you might be familiar with are TPAC and SAMR frameworks. So if you're not as familiar, let me just quick share what those are. So TPAC originally started by Schulman, where it said basically educators should have content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge. Content knowledge being they know their subject area. If they're a mathematics teacher, they know what the students should be coming to them with, what skills and knowledge, and what they should be leaving them with. Science, geography, or whatever teacher they are, they have their content knowledge, but that's not enough. You need the pedagogical knowledge as well to be able to share that information and understand how to share that information. So content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge is what Schulman said we need to bring together. And then with the rise, obviously, in technologies, Mishra and Kohler and Mishra, devised a new framework. There's two extra pieces to this. There's the extra circle in the Venn diagram there saying the technological knowledge, and there's also this large circle, context circle around the side. Now again, let me just explain that quickly again. So you've got on the bottom right, you've got content knowledge. You've got the pedagogical knowledge and you've got the technological knowledge. While they're all great, separate, the real perfect moment is that very center where you have all those things working together effectively. So I'll give you some examples. So content knowledge, it may be, let's go with the mathematics example. It may be mathematics. Okay, we have young children learning fractions. So pedagogical knowledge could be, okay, how are we going to teach this? Let's have students working in pairs to look at mathematics. I'm giving a very simple young example so that everyone can kind of understand. So pairs, working with manipulatives we could have, you know, like blocks, but then again, we can't split blocks. So technology would be a great one there with programs where we can actually split up, divide into fractions a whole object. So that might be a great example. Now, what is important around the edge here as well is context. That's thinking about the students, who they are, and how to best meet their needs, usually by kind of connecting to their context, as in what they like, what they understand. Like food is always a wonderful one. Students understand a lot when food is involved, but also thinking just about ages. I'll give you another example here. I used to work with children with severe behavioural problems. So for the content knowledge here, I used to be teaching the alphabet. Now, for teaching the alphabet to young children, I would have them doing all sorts of very cute things with little B for bees and having little visuals, you know, on the computer. How I taught that to adults, well, high school, older 16, 18-year-old students, learning the alphabet was very different. I would use very different, more adult approaches. So again, it's using those very effectively. So that is TPAC. Content, technological, pedagogical, content knowledge, those things coming together. Now, the next one is, and you can see students there using the mobile devices for all. In fact, there's an example on the right there, Lake Helen, Florida, shows that especially. And that's a great example of situated learning there. So the next example of a framework I'm giving you here is SAMA. Again, TPAC and SAMA are very well known. SAMA is substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And it's thinking about, okay, you're integrating technology, but how are you integrating technology? Are you using it at the very bottom there as a direct tool substitute with no functional change? Or are you taking it right to the top, redefinition? So a substitution one could be those, you know, on the last example, looking at going from worksheets, paper and pencil to go into an iPad. If there's no change, they're just literally putting things in on the kind of fake paper on the iPad. That's right at the bottom, substitution. Really, the question there is, why are you using technology? Although I'll come back to another point on this in a second. Right at the top here, redefinition was one of the examples of, well, I gave earlier. For example, having students work out angle by taking pictures in the real world with the mobile devices and then using the tools on the mobile devices to measure those angles. What's nice is they don't go back to the classroom to measure the angles. They actually stay there so they can see the angle being measured while also seeing it in the real world to make a lot more sense. Now, going higher up to redefinition is where we really want to go. However, substitution may be appropriate sometimes just for choice. Again, thinking about personalization. Some people like reading books, the paper copies. I actually like doing. Other people like looking at them online. If they're not doing anything, they're just looking online or having the paper version and there's no change. That's substitution, but it could be choice. So you want to meet the learner with their choice as well to help. So TPAC, SAMA, and there's some more examples here as well. Nice Google Earth, older example, but I always think this is a great one to show the progression, looking at Google Earth as an atlas to those narrated Google Earth tours. So in my research, here's the example there with the angles and the student taking pictures. So in my research, I've really explored how teachers can use mobile devices. What stops them? What gets this person making the choice about whether to use mobile technologies or not? And these are the 4 areas that I found. This is the M-Learning Integration Framework, and I've also recently updated that this year that I can share as well. But those major areas are educator beliefs, resources, methods, and purpose. And these fit across whether you're in school with teachers, higher ed for faculty, and these match across. So you just kind of need to fit them in, as you know, change the terminology to what makes sense. But let me dive into these 4 areas to explain further. So the first one, beliefs. So as an educator thinks about using mobile technologies, they often think of what is the role of teacher, and this often is disruptive because the role of teacher in the old traditional sense was that the teacher was the font of all knowledge, knew everything. And mobile devices cause a few problems that way because the student can fact check and sometimes, you know, question the teacher, are you correct? Because I see on the mobile device it says this. Also, it's more passive learning when a teacher's just listening with the students and talking to them and actually giving them information as if they're feeding in information. But mobile devices have them a lot more active, put a lot of control in the hands of students. So that can cause disruption to their thoughts of role of teacher. They also have those social cultural influences that again affect of what is the role of teacher. Self-efficacy, again, students can fact check to see whether the teacher's right, and also students can know more about how to use the device than the faculty member, than the teacher, which can again disrupt the self-efficacy, you know, how effective they feel as a teacher. And again, past experience as a learner. This has disrupted a lot of technology progression in education because a lot of teachers, a lot of faculty members look at their past favorite teachers and how they taught and like to replicate that. But the problem is then at that past time, they probably didn't have the technologies that we have now. So we're kind of replicating old practices. So beliefs, I will say out of all of these categories, beliefs is one of the main differences to whether an educator is going to use technology effectively or not, because if they don't believe it's effective, they're not going to use it. So we have to remember that and ensure educators feel comfortable. So resources, training, technical support, access to technology, these are the other things that we need to have. So these are kind of obvious as well, that we need access to technology, but then they go on to other things like the violin. Technology is great, but we need to know how to use it. And then if something goes wrong, you need technical support to be there on hand to help fix whatever problems you have while you're also managing the class. Methods. This is thinking again, the top right over there is the educator talking to a large group of students that are very passive again there. And again, philosophy, whether you're enjoying the constructivist approach, whether students learn with you, or whether it's that lecture style. And here at the bottom, you can see the lecture from the educator filling the students like little vessels to be filled with little nuggets of knowledge. How you use mobile technologies makes obviously a big difference with it, whether it's online or face-to-face. So all these things need to be considered. And then the final one here, and this is one that's gone on for years, it's what is the purpose? Why are we using mobile devices? And it's different than SAMR in that how we're using it, it's the actual purpose. A lot of educators can use them as time fillers, which is a shame because they have so much more purpose than that. Other educators use them for meeting actual learning objectives. We see this all the time though, where to keep children, especially young children, quiet, the iPad or the phone will be given just to keep them entertained for a while. So again, those are the 4 areas. But what we need to do as we see this is we need to see this kind of as a whole system. I'm sorry, there's a little bit cut off there. There we go. So in here, you can see the educator right at the very, very middle. So the educator, that individual, has their beliefs about learning. Then you've got the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, and the macrosystem. So it's getting larger. So surrounding the educator, you have the microsystem here, which has access to those technologies, understanding whether it's face-to-face or online learning that they've got to teach, the training around how to use devices, and then the technical support. So again, when things go wrong, having someone there to support them. Now I'm going to come back to the mesosystem and go to the exosystem. So that one was a school, and the exosystem is district. And this has the policies, funding for technology, the textbook course adoption, and funding for tech support. And then national is the largest kind of circle encompassing the educator. And this is thinking about what are those social tech norms? What's internet connectivity like? Do we have standards? What are those cultural tech norms? So thinking about this from a higher ed situation or an adult learning again, the surrounding one may be the university, and then the state or the university system, and then nationally. So you can kind of place anything onto it there. Now the mesosystem, what this is saying, can you see the arrows going across and these other additional arrows? What this is saying is, okay, at the school system, it might be training, but also the district might do training, and nationally, the national systems, organizations, they might also have training. So these things that are in each circle, so to speak, the nested circle, might go across to different areas as well. But the importance of this system here is saying access to technology tools, which is just out of in the microsystem, bottom left there, that access to technology tools is only one small part of all this. If someone wants to, especially for a leader, this is very important in thinking, okay, for this educator in the middle here, to effectively use mobile technologies, they need to be surrounded by all these things in place to help them be effective at integrating mobile devices, not just giving them the tools. For the educator using this is something, a framework to point to, saying, okay, you've given me these access to tech tools, where's the training? Where's the support? What are the policies on the use of this tool? So this can meet lots of different areas. Now, the German government asked me to go over there as well, looking at this from even the refugee system that they had there, and looking at what refugees needed to be successful in using technology. And so we kind of looked at it that way, with the refugee in the middle, using the tool and what they needed as well. So a lot of this can fit in many different landscapes, so to speak, but this was designed for this. And now to understand where all this information came from, this was from a thematic systematic review, where, like I said, I explored all the research there was to then say, okay, what do they need to be effective? And these are the things that came, and it was nice that I was able to track them to, okay, this comes here in the school or the university, this comes here in the district, oh, these are the national things we need to think about. So this is the mobile learning landscape that we have now. We've progressed greatly. We've gone from the initial scare of, should we use mobile devices? Should we ban mobile devices? How it affects educators in their feelings of not being in as much control. That transition to, you know, the educator knows this information, the student doesn't. We need to put these devices in the hands of the students to really have them understand, to personalize that learning. But I'm going to stop now and take questions if there are any. And I'll stop sharing for the moment, but I can easily share again to be able to go back to any of these slides.
Okay, thank you, Helen. So is there any questions? If you have questions, you can type in your questions through our Q&A. Yeah, Helen. So I'm interested in the series you mentioned in the in your talk. Actually, we in our research, we also try to integrate this kind of series into our teaching practice. We also train teachers to teach them how to integrate technology in the teaching and learning with the support of these kind of models. Can you explain one of models which is has been applied in your research? Yeah, so see how the teachers respond to this kind of theoretical framework. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure I fully understand, but let me start and then you can re-guide me if I've not. So my main job is preparing educators to use technologies. So the very first framework, I use these three frameworks that are well used across many countries, but the first one I use always is TPAC, thinking about content, but then what pedagogies and what technologies. Now, I've had great debates with Mishra, from Mishra and Kohler that developed that framework. They'll often argue that any of them can be thought, like technology can be thought of first. For me, I always say to the students, focus on the content and then go to the others. But then once they've got that framework, I then have them think, okay, they're including technology. How are you including it? And then the last one is the one I just showed there, which is now the SETI model as well. Social environmental integration technology framework, which thinks about all those social aspects as well as ecological in what is available. So I kind of covered the three. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, actually, the question can be, the answer can be more broad or specific. Yeah, according to the research. Yeah, so we received several questions from our Q&A. Yeah, so the first question from Evelyn. Yeah, can you see the question?
Yes, do you want me to take them?
Yeah, you may pick up or
yeah, so the first one is, what is the difference between the PIC-RAT model for technology integration and the SAM model that you shared? I'm not familiar with the one you mentioned. However, I am I'm probably thinking of the same one, which I call the RAT framework, R-A-T more. And what happened was, if we're thinking of the same one, is a student doing their PhD thesis actually developed this, which is just the same as the SAMR model, but the Puente Dura that developed the SAMR model basically repackaged what this student had done for her dissertation, the RAT model. And I can't remember, like RAT was redefinition, it's just swap them round. Modification, redefinition, you know, thinking about just swapping those around. But Puente Dura took that and got very famous of it. So if that's not the same one you're thinking, please put again in the question and answer, and I'll hopefully answer that question. But then the other one, thank you for the great presentation, thank you. You mentioned that educators are the center of social ecological framework. What kind of skills do educators need? That is a great question. The very first thing that I would go to is digital literacy skills. Although that's kind of cheating in a way, because digital literacy skills have various aspects all in kind of bundled together. But it's basically understanding information and data literacy, how to be safe on the web, you know, what to share, thinking about data management. And then also 21st century skills, the digital literacy also is that problem solving. So in other words, being able to troubleshoot some basic issues, you know, like if your email's not working or if a program's not working, just thinking about turning it off and on, my favorite, or just kind of going into some of the settings or something to kind of fix a problem. But also, again, thinking about using technologies for what we can use it for, the greater good for education. So digital literacy in the whole package is the one thing I would say that they need, and I kind of touched on some of those examples. Obviously, at the moment, you'd have to add to that artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence, I do want to mention this, because I've had two main game changers in my experience in my career in education. The first one was mobile technologies, being able to just literally contextualize learning, make it less abstract. And then the second one is artificial intelligence. Now, that doesn't move away from mobile learning, because there's a lot of artificial intelligence tools that connect right into a mobile device. Even ChatGPT, for example, that you can get on a mobile device. So thinking about those 21st century skills and knowledge, I would definitely add in the AI piece now to that. And I'll go on to the next one, but stop me if I need to explain a little bit further. So the next one is how to integrate the framework you mentioned of beliefs, resources, methods, and purpose in teaching. And should all the four elements or parts be included? Yes, definitely. If I didn't make that clear, I'm sorry. That whole Venn diagram, not Venn diagram, the nested model showing the educator in the middle and those circles going out. To be effective, including technology, you have to think about all those things. For example, they might have the technology, they might have the training, they might have the policies, they might have all these other things in place, but if one thing goes wrong, like it breaks and there's no tech support, there's no technology integration. Same for any of the others. You could literally choose any of those and say, okay, does this work effectively if you take that one piece out? And the answer will be no. You need to have all those pieces in to be effective. Okay, any other questions. And let me check the chat as well. Those whose questions I answered, would you like to put a follow-up? Do you need any extra information?
Yeah, thank you for attending our seminar. Yeah, we have received these questions. Actually, we need to further think about what Helen mentioned in the PPT slides. Yeah, there are some theoretical part we need to digest. Yeah, and also we need to consider how to transfer or integrate this kind of theoretical framework into the research design or lesson design in our research. Yeah, especially I think for the young scholars in the field of educational technology. Actually, today my PhD students and I also attend your seminar. I will later on. I will conduct further discussion with them. If you have any other questions, you are welcome to contact Helen for further consultation. Yeah, thank you very much for delivering this inspiration seminar for us. Yeah, so later, please hold on. Yeah, so for the audience, I think.
Yeah. Now I'm sorry to jump in, I'll put a couple of links as well in the chat, just to share where you can find some more of those frameworks as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah. Or papers, yeah.
Yeah, so I can share them with you later if that's better.
Yeah. Also, let me share this.
In fact, what I will give as well, because I'll give a link here. Okay, copy link. Right, I'm going to also share this link. This has all my, I'll share it with everybody. This has my CV that has a great number of mobile learning. You'll see a great many articles there. And yeah, thank you. So if you scroll down, you'll see lots of articles on mobile learning. So you can see all those from Chinese databases. And yeah, that's great. So feel free to have a look at those. And if people can't get access to some, I'm happy to share. Oh, and that's okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, for the sharing. Yeah, I think also doing my research, I also read encounter your papers. Yeah, especially for the high cited review papers. Yeah, it's really great work. Okay. Yeah, so let's move to the next session. It's about online survey. Yeah, so to give us any feedback and comments. Yeah. Yeah, please scan QR code to fill out the survey. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Can you see my screen now? Let me. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Here. Should be must share it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Have you seen the QR code? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Please fill out the survey, online survey. Okay. Yeah. So then. So here I'd like to announce our next APSCE webinar. The title is Smart Technologies in Education Policies for Effective and Ethical Use. Yeah, so we will have a panel discussion. So try to welcome to register our next seminar. Yeah. So this is the end of today's seminar. We would like to thank Professor Helen Crafton again for her inspiration talk. So you also get the link from her. Yeah, so we can read, especially for some the papers or highly cited research papers of Professor Helen Crafton. Yeah, so if you have any questions or ideas, we can also share after seminar. Okay, bye-bye. Bye. Okay, you can leave Zoom now.